Good afternoon again. Thank you for joining me this afternoon, this nice sunny Sunday afternoon. I sincerely hope you're having a quiet, chill day. Um, so it's me, the Ranting Revolutionary, and the theme is taking back control. This isn't a definitive podcast, but it's a beginning. So by taking back control, I do mean that we are going to have to participate in local government, and we are going to have to get out of the two-party system, which is dead from the neck up. What's more, it's no longer a two-party system, it's a uni-party system, given the fact that both parties toddle along to Davos like good little poodles. So I don't think we need to bother with them anymore. So it means that we do have to field candidates both at the local election level and at national level who are not bought and paid for by big pharma. And when you look at the donations that certain members of parliament have received from big pharma, it's definitely against the law, and it's definitely against the spirit of the law, and something should be done about it very quickly. They certainly shouldn't be re-elected, and they shouldn't be allowed any public office after that. So, we do not have a written constitution in this country. It does not actually impede our government. On the contrary, it has its own checks and balances, which in one way are written, either by statute or primary legislation, or it's equity, which is a type of law that has been confirmed as being or taking precedence over common law. Common law has been confirmed as taking precedence over primary legislation or statute. And so you do have to have notions of our constitution, which isn't a barrier. In the description below, there is a link to a site called Peacekeepers. They do a very, very good training on this. I thoroughly enjoyed reading and listening to the materials, and it is very well explained. I would only add one thing, and that is do invest in a good dictionary. That's very important. Now, the reason a good dictionary is important is because he who controls the language controls the culture, he who controls the culture controls the thought processes. Now, that is Orwellian, but is exactly what's happening. The world's favorite search engine was founded by ex-CIA directors and senior executives, and they are, for the most part, still in place. And a certain instant dictionary ending in pedia, exactly the same. So buying a paper, up-to-date encyclopedic dictionary is money well spent. When it comes to constitutional law and law in general, there is a legal dictionary. I think it's called Office Law. It's only £21, and details of that dictionary can be found on the Peacekeepers website as well. Now, European countries, for the most part, have a written constitution and a written law, which is codified. So you'll have a law for employment, and everything will be in that law, including unions, including pensions, including working conditions, including health and safety, including medical visits. The whole shooting match will be there. Then there'll be another law, code of law, canon of law, if you like, for property transactions, whether it's the purchase and sale or whether it's renting or leasing, if leasing exists in certain countries. And then we have United States, which has a constitution where the checks and balances are written in, but as we have seen recently, it can be sabotaged if you have all the wrong people in all the right places. It does, however, like everything, you keep putting in the washing machine often enough at the right temperature and with enough detergent, and finally you do get the stains out. So we will prevail, but it's not going to be a walk in the park. The interesting thing about the American Constitution was that it actually was presented twice to Louis XVI. Benjamin Franklin took it across the Atlantic twice, and much of the French Constitution is based on the American Constitution in the spirit in which it's written. In everyday function, it is once again a law for insurance, a law for banking, a law for employment, etc., etc. And it is a system that does work, having lived there for over 30 years, or in French-speaking parts of the world. So that's one thing. And speaking of the French and the Europeans, I would like to just have a little thought of support for all those farmers, because their battle is our battle. I certainly don't want to eat insects. I don't want to have lab-grown meat shoved down my throat. And it's in everyone's interest that they do prevail. And it's in our interests to support them. And this is part of taking back control. Supporting the farmers in any way you can, even if it's just reposting posts, even if it's just sending messages of support, that helps. Any other way you can help, great. You don't support isn't just with a checkbook. You can actually go and see them and say hi and bring some nice cheese and wine, have a nice time, or some good salami, and have a nice chat. I really do wish I could do that. No, I'd love to. I really would. So I'll get back to the farmers, because I actually have an idea, and it may not be the most sophisticated of ideas, but it's a win-win-win situation, because cost of living crisis hits farmers as well as consumers, and the large retail chains have had it easy long enough, and they're sitting on large reserves. So when they're crying to the press and whoever else wants to listen about, oh, our sales are down, etc. Yes, right. Your margins are still the same, and you're still paying dividends and all the rest of it. So, the wolf is hardly at the door. Okay, so in my cruising of the internet and surfing of the internet, as I said, I listen to Richard Vobes a lot, and I really do like his work. And in one of his podcasts, he introduced us all to something called Freedom Alliance, which is just about local people taking control. And Freedom Alliance would like to field candidates in local government all over the country, as well as parliamentary candidates. And we are already the 5th of February tomorrow. The elections are going to be in the spring, at the latest, I think. So time is of the essence, and it's well worth going to the Peacekeepers site if this interests you, and going through their training. That way you will have an idea of how the system is meant to work. I say meant to work because all systems can be sabotaged by the wrong people in the right places, as we have seen. So, to make things more concrete, there's another site, which I've put in the description, called Colchester Council Watch. And council watching is a full-time job. They do an absolutely wonderful job. Unfortunately, they don't ask us to sit through the videos of 2-hour-long planning meetings, not to mention one of the meetings when it was finance. and getting a straight answer to a straight question lasted I don't know how many hours. I don't know how Rachel, who runs the site and runs Colchester Council Watch, how she put up with it. I mean, it was, honestly, it was head banging. It was that bad. I mean, I really, when she took out this mangled ball of wool and demonstrated how difficult it was and how many times they had to go around the houses to get a straight answer to a straight question, it was unbelievable. But that is what local government is also, and it's also part of life, and it has to be managed. So going on to the Council Watch is also very amusing because Rachel's got this wonderful dry sense of humour, and she's very perspicacious, and it will give you a good reality dose of what it's like in council meetings. I go to my local council meeting, and it's quite clearly rehearsed for a large part. Also, you cannot pose a question as a member of the public without having registered the question at least 2 working days prior to the meeting so that they have time to reply, theoretically. I had my 2 questions censored by the chief executive, and I still haven't calmed down sufficiently to write to him asking him where this is actually clearly stipulated in the constitution of my local council. Now, what you also have to understand about councils is that they are corporations. They have a Dun & Bradstreet number, as do our courts. And what you have to realize is that they are being run, sadly, as corporations where people are the secondary consideration and revenue is the prime consideration. And it's almost as though they're trying to break us with taxes and break our morale. It's absolutely ridiculous. So if you want to go down that route, I have given you a little vaccination. It is fun, on the other hand, and if you like people, and if you can handle the canvassing, handle handing out leaflets, if you're not going to be intimidated by local press and then national press, if you can handle a lot of, you have to have a thick skin, because people will say nasty things about you which have nothing to do with whatever you've said or done. It's just they don't know how to argue. They can't say, I disagree with you, and here are my reasons. They will say, oh, you're a bad person, I don't agree with you. No. But sadly, this is one of the consequences of dumbing down the population. It's another consequence of woke culture, God help us. So you have to create a website. Now, Freedom Alliance got a nice little website. If you are going to work with them, I would suggest that you try and keep your website in keeping with theirs. Now, taking back control doesn't just mean allying yourself with one particular group of citizens. You may decide that you would be better suited doing something like Council Watch, or you may be better suited being an independent voice that does blogs, that writes, that commentates, and invites people to participate in these discussions with a view to forwarding that to whomsoever is in power might be interested. That's one way. There's also organizing groups in your community to fill in the holes left by work not done by the council, and it can be helping children after school with their homework. It can be all sorts of things that are constructive, useful, and have durable, measurable results. I think they call it sustainability. It doesn't have to be political, and one can actually go into politics without being political, in that you are not representing any political dogma. You are there simply to make things better, to ameliorate the conditions for all concerned. And this is one of the problems with the two-party system. It's based on dogma. It has nothing to do with actually ameliorating anything for anybody at the moment, except for certain people who have mastered the art of feathering their nest at our expense. And I won't go on about that now. So, the other thing, if you are going to go down the electoral route, or the electoral rabbit hole, you must remember people's names, and if you do have a memory problem, then write it down all the time. And you must always be very sure of your facts. Do not assume anything. To assume is to make an ass out of you and me, and that is the truth. So double check everything. Create a website. And you can create a website even if you're not going down the electoral path, but just have a nice website that explains how you're going to make things better in your way, in your little part of the world, so that people can come along and lend a hand. And they know you're there, and they know what you're doing, and they could actually say, oh, well, I like that, can I give you a hand with that? And so on. Now, I would also suggest that if you do go to council meetings and you can pose questions without having to book the question first, that regardless of the reply you receive, always remain in control of yourself, which can be quite difficult at times, and Rachel will confirm this, and always reply politely, which doesn't stop you from insisting and demanding, quite rightly, an intelligible reply to your question. And if they try and tell you that the question doesn't arise, or it's superfluous, or it doesn't need to be asked, to say, as I'm posing the question, there is obviously a reason for it. Nicely, of course. And it is difficult to be nice. Now, getting back to farmers, I had a little brainwave whilst I was eating my Sunday turkey, which was quite delicious, British turkey. And I thought, right, people have got budgets that have never been so tight for a very long time. Farmers are having a hard time, and the middleman is making money off both sides, which in the marketing model is the norm. However, we're at the point now where it's just not working for anybody. The consumer, the farmer, the only ones who are actually making money are the middlemen. So I thought, well, if someone had the time and the information, he could go, or she could go, or they could go, plural, to their local farmers and say, what produce have you got, be it seasonal or perennial, that we could go to the neighborhoods with a van and sell on your behalf, for which obviously we will take a commission that everybody can live with, and obviously our expenses, the petrol, and all the rest of it. And the consumer wins because they don't have to go far for their shopping. Obviously it's not going to be all their shopping, but they don't have to go into town. Secondly, it'll be cheaper than the normal retail outlets. Thirdly, it's quality produce, all nice and fresh and seasonal. The seller makes an honest living, the farmer makes an honest living, and the consumer gets wonderful produce at less than the normal retail outlet. Now that's just one idea I had whilst I was chomping away at my turkey, as one does. It's a win-win situation. And if we reason in terms of win-win-win, where all the players win, and it's all above board, and it's clear cut, straightforward, then we don't need an authorization. We don't need special permission. Now, you might need to have us to park the van in a parking place, but I don't believe you're going to need a license. Now, you may actually, in some cases, need a license, but it's nominal. The fee is nominal, so it's not preventative if it is required at all. But that's just one of many ideas. And this is the point. If we get together and we start knocking these ideas around, and then we actually say, well, let's implement this because this is a good one, and we've got so many hours per week we can do this, and yes, it is a win-win situation, and we can let people know about it quickly and easily. Word gets around fast, especially if it's good, cheap food, and you don't have to trudge into town or take a bus in the pouring rain and all the rest of it. It's quite nice, actually. So, but that's just one example. I'm sure there are loads and loads of examples like this. Just as there are, for example, lots of people who've always wanted to play a musical instrument and have never got around to it. There are lots of people who want to paint and draw or do sculpture. They've never got around to it. And we have this reservoir of talent that is being unexploited. Whereas actually people love teaching other people how to do things, and it's a creative experience, it's therapeutic in the extreme for all concerned. Everyone has a nice time, and it's a lot better than sitting in front of the goggle box, of course. And then there's people who want to do sports, who want proper coaching, proper supervision, either because they have a project or because they are recovering from a phase in hospital or whatever. I mean, there's so many things that we can do to take control. And also, when you start to take control, word gets around very fast that things are working and that we are looking after each other. And then you have something called credibility and even gravitas in some cases. And you can actually go to the council and say, yes, I'm the person that does this and that. And we've come to you because we would like you now to implement this, to help us do that. And we don't want any taxpayers' money, but we would like to be able to use a hall or a room or whatever, right? And yes, we will clean up afterwards, okay? So there's lots and lots of things that can be done. And it's all about attitude, which is, of course, to make things better for everyone. And we have had, in these last few years, basically governments turning on their own people. Now, with all the uninvited guests coming to our shores, and with all the potholes that we have, and with this wonderful accommodation and allowances that we're giving them, we could actually do a deal whereby there is some service to the community as well. No, it doesn't all fall from heaven for nothing. So if we are stuck with them for a little while, we can nonetheless have a mutually beneficial arrangement. And I see absolutely no shame, blame, or any other impediment in when you're being housed, fed, clothed, and everything else, all for free, to ask that you make a contribution. Now, obviously, we're not going to ask pregnant women to go and fill in potholes, right? I mean, we are reasonable. But you've got military-aged men who are perfectly healthy, not doing a lot, right? So, to keep them out of trouble as well, that might be a good idea, but it's just an idea at this stage. And I don't want to be treated as far right, thank you, I'm just being practical. Okay, so that's my ranting revolutionary podcast for today. I have also attached the link to the patent for the free energy device, and the patent is free to use, and there is also a working model which is free to use. So if candidates actually want to go before the public and say, well, we do have the possibility to make energy as near as damn it free, then that would be a very, very good basis upon which to start campaigning. And it's a win-win situation. The consumer wins, the community wins, taxpayer wins, because we're not going to be forking out heating bills that then pay dividends to people who don't give a damn. So that money can then be ploughed back into the community to do more good, such as reducing the waiting list on the National Health Service. And that free energy can actually be used for medicinal purposes as well. There's a whole another chapter to that, which I can do another podcast on later on. And I might even be able to invite some experts on that. So yes, ploughing it back, we could reduce the National Health waiting list. We could reduce class sizes with the money that we're saving, so that students can actually have a far more individual form of tuition, and we can raise standards, because quite frankly, I think when it comes to our league table results in secondary education, we're not very near the top, to put it bluntly. So that would be a very useful redeployment of resources. We could also actually bump up our army and our navy and our conventional forces. I don't believe we need nuclear for a moment. But that's a whole other debate. And that wraps it up for me today. I sincerely hope you have a nice rest of Sunday afternoon and a nice Sunday evening, and I will speak to you tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time. Goodbye.